Imagine watching your ex-partner finally achieve everything they ever dreamed of, using the exact blueprint you told them would never work. That is the haunting reality for Kevin Stefanski right now. As the 2026 NFL Draft headlines continue to roll in, articles are already hitting the pipeline describing a man who looks completely broken by the success of the franchise he used to lead. It is getting messy in Atlanta. And if you look at the leaked footage of Stefanski watching the Cleveland Browns go all in on Shedeur Sanders, the reaction says absolutely everything. There were no professional smiles or polite nods for the cameras, just the raw, visible jealousy of a man watching his replacement build a masterpiece. The real question we have to ask is whether this was a brilliant rebuild around a generational talent, or the moment the league finally realized that Stefanski was the one holding the entire city of Cleveland back. We're about to uncover exactly what happened behind those closed doors, and why the Atlanta Falcons front office is suddenly feeling very nervous about the guy they just hired. Somewhere right now, Kevin Stefanski is reading the Browns draft headlines, and it has to be eating him alive. The reports aren't guesswork, they are published facts. He is reportedly crushed by what Cleveland just pulled off. Just consider the irony for a second. This is the same guy who had that roster, had those elite resources, and had every chance to build a dynasty, yet he torched it. It wasn't just a standard failure, it was a spectacular collapse. While Stefanski was in Cleveland, the team felt stagnant, but the moment he left, the front office started moving like they were using a cheat code. They dropped from pick 6 down to 9 and still managed to snag the exact guy they wanted in Spencer Fano. They didn't just get lucky. They cashed in the first-round selection they got from Jacksonville for Casey Concepcion and followed it up with Denzel Boston in the second round. That isn't luck. That is a front office that finally has the freedom to execute a real plan. Atlanta fans are now literally stalking the Browns draft class like an ex-girlfriend on Instagram. And when a totally different fan base is obsessed with what your old team is building, you know something massive is happening. Stefanski watched it all from the outside, and he felt it in his chest, because deep down he knows this is the team he was meant to build. But he simply couldn't handle the greatness of the players involved. This gets so much worse for Stefanski when you look at the tactical shift in Cleveland. Todd Monken came in and immediately constructed the entire organizational identity around Shedeur Sanders. Everything, the offense, the locker room structure, the future capital, it all flows through number one. That is what a true offensive mastermind does when he is gifted a franchise quarterback. He hands him the keys and steps aside. But Stefanski, he couldn't do that. He wouldn't do that. We have to remember that this is the same coach who went to great lengths to keep Shedeur on the sidelines. He denied the kid reps in practice. He demoted Dillon Gabriel to the back of the depth chart, in a move that felt more like a personal grudge than a football decision, and he allowed toxic chemistry to fester. He put Jerry Jeudy in that locker room, a receiver so disruptive that his mere presence was like poison to the offensive flow. He left Shedeur behind an offensive line that was a train wreck waiting to happen, and then acted shocked when things went wrong. Was any of that an accident? When you line up every decision Stefanski made regarding Shedeur, every single one of them pointed away from success. And now, Monken has removed the noise and created a clean structure where Shedeur can actually play football, and the difference is already staggering. One coordinator showed up and did in a single offseason what Stefanski couldn't do in years, and don't even get me started on the play calling. Stefanski's offense was stale, predictable, and frankly inappropriate for a quarterback of Shedeur's caliber. He was calling plays like a guy trying to lose, or worse, like a guy designing an offense specifically to make his quarterback look bad. Then, when the injury happened, Stefanski's fingerprints were all over that narrative too. The organization let the story spin out of control, instead of protecting their starter. Media voices linked to the Browns' inner circle were out there questioning Shedeur's grit, his captaincy, and his heart. That campaign didn't come out of nowhere. Someone in that building was feeding the fire. Now, Stefanski stands on the outside, broken over a draft he had nothing to do with. Watching the quarterback he tried to bury become the face of a franchise that is finally moving in the right direction. Atlanta got a coach who torpedoed a young star's first season. Cleveland got a coordinator building an offense that could be dangerous for the next decade. The trade worked out great. just not for Kevin. The truth is, Stefanski got torched in this draft. There are people trying to argue that the Falcons' draft was just as good, or that Stefanski isn't bothered by what's being built in Cleveland. That isn't analysis, it's just static. It's a take you have when you don't have anything real to say. The Falcons picked up a couple of wide receivers, and people are acting like that is a comparable haul. Wide receivers, that's what Stefanski brought to Atlanta. Meanwhile, Cleveland is collecting the very parts Monken needs to protect Shedeur for the next 10 years. Atlanta fans aren't even waiting to see how the season unfolds. They are already calling for Stefanski's resignation. The guy hasn't even coached a game for that franchise yet, and the fan base is already over him. That doesn't happen to a coach people believe in. It happens to a coach people can see right through. The notion that he is sitting in Atlanta feeling good about himself is a complete lie. He's getting turned on by his new fans because they saw what Cleveland built, and they are asking the tough question, why are we stuck with the guy who tried to sabotage that? Let's talk about the absolute masterclass Cleveland put on during the second round. They grabbed Emmanuel McNeil-Warren at pick 58. This is a guy who sat on Daniel Jeremiah's best available board for an hour, ranked all the way up at number 15. Cleveland snagged him at 58. That is the kind of value that makes other front offices sick to their stomachs. Then they picked up Austin Barber, a massive tackle from Florida, in the third round. And that third-round pick? It came from the trade where Cleveland let Jacksonville move up to take Mansour Delane. The Browns dropped to 9, still got their guy, and kept collecting assets like they had a permanent 20% discount on the entire league. This roster isn't being built for just one season. It has been building around Shedeur Sanders for a long time. Every move has a reason. Every choice is linked to a long-term plan. And Casey Concepcion is the choice that makes the whole story work. Beyond the talent, that pick officially closes the book on the Jacksonville train from last year. That deal is fully cashed in now, and the Browns came away with real, tangible value on both sides. While other franchises are asking their fans to believe in yet another endless rebuild, Cleveland is turning every single pick into a real contributing player. Last year, the dog pound was in a state of panic. Fans were shouting, "Why would you trade out of the second spot? You could have had Travis Hunter." We all saw what Travis turned into once he came back from that knee injury. But look at the consequences of that decision now. The Browns traded down and picked up Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins, and Dylan Sampson. Those are two running backs who created immediate noise as rookies, real production, not just combine hype. And that Jacksonville trade kept paying dividends all the way into this draft, with Casey Concepcion landing in Cleveland. That is a smart front office. Travis Hunter is undeniably talented, but he is still working through injury concerns, and nobody knows what his long-term ceiling looks like. Cleveland wasn't playing for a maybe. They stacked proven value at multiple positions and just kept adding picks. While everyone was questioning the move, the Browns were already 3 steps ahead. If you step back and look at the whole picture, the purpose is clear. Jeremiah Love was the 3rd pick overall and wasn't projected to Cleveland in a single mock draft. Not one. That type of uncertainty is what this front office thrives on, seeing things that other teams miss entirely. They got to Love before the rest of the league could even react. They had a purpose in every single round, coming out with depth, talent, and future capital all at once. And every one of these moves is building the same thing, a complete fortress around Shedeur Sanders. That is the through line in everything Cleveland is doing. The running backs are there to relieve the pressure on Shedeur. The offensive line is there to have his back. The receivers are the tools he needs to dismantle defenses. Todd Monken isn't just calling plays, he is building a strategic identity specific to what Shedeur does best. This roster used to be the opposite of that. It was a mess with no direction and no commitment to the quarterback wearing number 1. That is where Stefanski's failure becomes impossible to ignore. He had the assets, he had the picks, and he had a franchise quarterback, yet he did nothing to celebrate. He spent his energy getting Shedeur on the sidelines and Dylan Gabriel on the bench, surrounding the kid with problems instead of solutions. The last regime left the roster in no shape to compete, so Monken had to rebuild the culture from the ground up. He walked in and changed the approach on day 1. He looked at Shedeur and saw a generational talent to be nurtured. Stefanski looked at that same quarterback and saw a threat to be managed. That difference in vision is why one of these men is now sitting in Atlanta with fans calling for his head before a single snap has been played, while the other is quietly assembling the most exciting offense Cleveland has ever seen. The receipts don't lie, and the Browns draft just printed a shiny new stack of them. Every move in Cleveland is now a reminder of what changed and what finally feels right. If you're ready to see Shedeur finally unleashed without the shadow of the old regime, you need to stay locked in, because this story is just getting started.